Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Listen, today we are not going to be running through some boring, repetitive grammar drill. Oh no, instead we're going to treat this like a real detective investigation. We are going to decode the hidden meanings behind advanced English modals of obligation and necessity. You know, for advanced C1 English learners, these little words aren't just vocabulary. They're the secret codes that dictate the tone, the stakes, and the true meaning behind your sentences. I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through this, so get ready to uncover exactly what you're really saying when you speak. Okay, let's dive into this. Our roadmap for today is pretty straightforward. First, we'll look at the modal mystery. Then we'll break down internal versus external pressure. After that, we hit the ultimate contrast, apply it to some advanced real-world contexts, and finally, we'll put it all into practice. So, let's kick things off with a simple question to get your gears turning. Imagine you're, say, going for a bike ride, or maybe stepping onto a busy construction site. Someone walks right up to you and makes a statement about your headgear. I want you to ask yourself, do these next few sentences mean the exact same thing?
Right, so here are our 4 clues. You must wear a helmet, you have to wear a helmet, you mustn't wear a helmet here, and you don't have to wear a helmet here. Now, on the surface, these sentences look almost identical, don't they? The grammar structure is practically the same, the vocabulary is basically a match, but by swapping just 1 or 2 tiny words, the entire context fundamentally shifts. We're talking going from a polite suggestion all the way to an absolute, non-negotiable prohibition. Let's unpack why.
Let's isolate our very first clue here. Must. When you use must for an obligation, that pressure, it comes entirely from the speaker's own personal judgment, opinion, or authority. It is highly, highly personal. You use must because you, the speaker, deeply believe something is incredibly necessary or essential.
Notice how this process actually flows. It starts with an internal source, like your heart or your mind. Then it filters right through your personal judgment. And boom, that is what creates the obligation. So when you say, I must finish this report tonight, that is your own internal drive pushing you. There's no boss standing over your shoulder forcing you. You're forcing yourself. Or if you say, we must protect endangered species, you're expressing a really deep moral or personal belief.
Now let's contrast that with our second clue, have to. This is a completely different ballgame. When you use have to, the obligation is coming from an outside source. We are talking about rules, laws, regulations, or rigid schedules. The pressure here is entirely external, which effectively strips away your personal choice completely. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the origin point changes. It is no longer your heart or mind, it's an external rule or circumstance. That creates outside pressure, which forms the obligation. Think about it. Employees have to wear ID badges, or I have to pay my taxes. Listen, you aren't paying taxes because it's a deeply held personal desire. I mean, at least most of us aren't. You do it because the law absolutely dictates it. This side-by-side comparison brilliantly illustrates the difference. On the left, I must lose weight. That's personal determination. You looked in the mirror, you made a choice. But on the right, I have to lose weight. That heavily implies a doctor sat you down and gave you a strict medical mandate. The physical action is exactly the same, but the source of the pressure has completely shifted from internal to external. Here's another great example for you. You must read this book is a strong, enthusiastic recommendation from a buddy. But you have to read this book for class is a non-negotiable academic requirement. Now, I do want to add a quick side note for you advanced speakers here. In modern, informal spoken English, people actually use have to replace the formal must all the time in everyday conversation. But in writing and certainly in formal speech, maintaining this distinction is absolutely key. All right, let's shift gears and look at the negative forms, because this is where things get really high stakes. Must not or mustn't expresses strong prohibition. It means something is strictly forbidden or absolutely not allowed. If you see a sign that says you mustn't smoke in the laboratory or passengers mustn't open the emergency exits, trust me, that is not a casual suggestion. Breaking this rule could result in serious danger or major consequences. At the C1 level, there's a very subtle distinction you really need to master between mustn't and can't. Mustn't always means prohibition. It means forbidden. End of story. Can't, however, pulls double duty. Yes, it can mean prohibition, like you can't park here, but it can also mean impossibility or deduction, like when you say, you can't be serious, or that can't be true. And that brings us to the absolute biggest learner myth we are going to bust today. Don't have to. This phrase simply expresses an absence of necessity. It literally just means something is entirely optional. If you don't have to hurry, it means you can take your time. You still could hurry if you really wanted to, but the pressure is totally off. It absolutely definitively does not mean prohibited.
So, the crucial point is, well, let's draw the ultimate line in the sand using exam rules. Take the scenario on the left. You mustn't use your phone during the exam. That means it is forbidden. You do it, you fail. Now look at the right. You don't have to use your phone during the exam. That means it's optional. Imagine the sheer disaster if a teacher accidentally uses the sentence on the right when they really mean the sentence on the left. It completely changes the rules of the entire room.
I actually want you to pause the explainer right now and literally take a screenshot of this cheat sheet. This is your ultimate visual anchor. It perfectly decodes every single modal we've investigated so far. Must is internal, have to is external, mustn't is strict prohibition, can't is prohibition or impossibility, and don't have to simply means a lack of necessity. Keep this table in your mind for sure.
Okay, let's elevate the stakes a bit and apply these rules to a professional workplace setting. These modals dictate actual HR policies and corporate law. Employees must maintain confidentiality. That's an internal, core professional ethic. They have to complete mandatory training. That is a schedule imposed by HR. They mustn't disclose sensitive info. That's a strict prohibition. And they don't have to work on public holidays, which is a very welcome absence of necessity. And the exact same precision applies to academic contexts. For any IELTS or TOEFL candidates out there heading to university, this is absolute survival vocabulary. Students must cite sources accurately, a core academic principle. They have to submit dissertations by the deadline because the university schedule demands it. They mustn't plagiarize, forbidden, and they don't have to attend optional workshops. That's totally up to the student. Let's rapidly fire through some really common advanced learner mistakes. Take a look at the left. You mustn't come if you're busy. If you say this to a friend, you are accidentally forbidding them from coming to your house. It sounds incredibly harsh. What you actually mean is over on the right. You don't have to come if you're busy. That politely gives your friend a graceful way out without literally banning them from your premises. Here's a structural trap that catches even advanced speakers completely off guard. Must is a pure modal verb, which means it is always followed directly by the base verb. There is absolutely no to in the middle, ever. I must have finished is totally incorrect. I must finish the report is the clean, correct, and professional way to state your internal obligation.
And here's one final structural error regarding third-person singulars. It is so tempting to say she doesn't has to attend because, we naturally associate has with she. But the negative auxiliary already does all the heavy lifting for the third person. So the main verb just reverts right back to its base form. It must always be she doesn't have to attend. Let's move to and see how this builds your confidence in real time. It is practice time. Consider this sentence. You blank wear a helmet here. It's the law. Which one fits perfectly in that blank? Is it must or have to? Think about the source of the pressure we talked about earlier. The answer is have to. If you got that right, brilliant job. Your logic is totally sound. Because the sentence explicitly mentions the law. The obligation is coming from an external source, the government's rulebook, not your personal internal judgment. Let's try one more. This is a very high-stakes scenario. Imagine you're standing in front of a top-secret laboratory door. The sentence is, you blank enter the restricted area. Which option goes in that blank? Don't have to or mustn't. Making the wrong choice here could literally result in a massive security breach. And the answer is mustn't. It's the only correct choice for an absolute prohibition. If you told someone they don't have to enter the restricted area, you're telling them it's optional, essentially inviting them to just wander in if they feel like it. Mustn't ensures that door stays firmly shut. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final thought. Grammar mastery comes not from memorizing rules, but from understanding meaning and context. You see, speaking advanced C1 English isn't just about sounding correct. It's about being incredibly precise with your intentions. By mastering the difference between internal and external pressures, and between choice and prohibition, you take total control of your communication. So I leave you with this provocative question to ponder. Next time you hear someone say, I have to do this, ask yourself, who is really pulling their strings? Thanks so much for joining me on this investigation, and keep decoding those language secrets.